This is how good a baseball player Bernie Carbo was. The Cincinnati Reds drafted him ahead of eventual Hall of Famer Johnny Bench. Ironically, it was against the Reds in the 1975 World Series that Carbo hit his iconic home run for Boston, setting the stage for Carlton Fisk's historic shot later in extra innings. That game is often called the greatest ever played, and Carbo tells Mark Schwartz that he played that game the way he played virtually every game in his 12-year career, in the throes of a destructive secret.
There it goes, a long drive. If it stays fair, home run.
It was Carlton Fisk's iconic 12th inning home run that gave Boston Game 6 of the 1975 World Series. But what made that moment possible was Bernie Carbo's three-run blast to tie the game in the 8th.
Deep center field, way back, we're tied up.
It was the signature moment of his 12-year career. But hours later, Carbo was alone, in tears.
I hit the greatest home run, and I was sitting in my bed crying. I'm just crying like a little baby. And I didn't understand what's wrong. You know, I just hit something that I dreamed about my whole life.
On the day he hit the greatest pinch hit home run in Red Sox World Series history, Bernie Carbo says he got stoned, that he smoked marijuana that morning, that afternoon, and again on the way to the ballpark, that he drank beer throughout the day, and took speed when he arrived at Fenway Park.
I was addicted to the point where I couldn't play without the drugs. And it wasn't a drug that I didn't take. I mean, I was taking mescaline, I was taking cocaine, crystal meth, smoking dope, and taking pills and drinking. You know, I felt that even though I hit this home run and I reached the place that in my life that I dreamed about, it didn't bring me any happiness.
How many players do you think in a typical clubhouse did almost as many drugs as you did?
Nobody did as many drugs as I did.
Number one, Bernie Carbo.
In more than 1,000 games, Carbo says he played only one straight, and sometimes he says he was so stoned he hallucinated in the outfield.
Well, it felt like the stars were falling from the sky, and there's a lot of times that I had to shake myself and say, okay, get yourself together now. The worst thing that I did, I got hooked into mescaline. 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd be searching for the drug. I'd be in the streets looking for it, finding the drug, and then thinking, you know, I'm gonna die, I need this.
Carbo did have talent. In fact, 6 major league clubs gave him a shot. But after being traded 4 times and released twice, Carbo's last game in the big leagues was in 1980. He was only 33.
At the end, I hated baseball. I hated baseball. I hated what I had become, but now I realize that it wasn't baseball. It was Bernie Carbo.
Carbo says a decade later, when he was playing in the senior professional league, he blew $100,000 on drugs in 3 months, squandering the money he inherited that year after losing both of his parents.
Well, my mother committed suicide, and my dad died 2 months later. I felt at that time I was responsible for my mother's death.
Carbo says he blamed himself because his parents were heartbroken when they heard their son's former teammate mention his name prominently in a 1985 trial about drugs in baseball.
It has been the second full day of testimony in Pittsburgh about major league ball players and drugs. The star on the stand was Keith Hernandez.
Several players admitted using drugs. Keith Hernandez told the world it was Carbo who introduced him to cocaine.
How did you feel about Keith Hernandez when you heard that?
The truth? I knew some people, and I had $2,000, and I asked him to break his arms.
You really did want to send someone over to break his arms?
Yeah, I had $2,000, and when I went to the individual to have it done, he said, we'll do it in 2 or 3 years if you want it done. But we're not going to do it today, Bernie. If we went and broke his legs today or broke his arms, you don't think that they would understand it's you are the one that had it done? But if I was to be with Keith Hernandez today, I would tell Keith Hernandez, I'm sorry that I introduced you to a drug, and I'm sorry that I was your problem.
Carbo says that in 1992, he decided life was no longer worth living.
I pulled the car in the garage. I started the engine. I went to smoke my last joint and drink my last beer.
But then, Carbo says, the phone rang. It was former teammate Bill Lee, who got Ferguson Jenkins to call next. A third call from ex-big leaguer Sam McDowell, an addiction counselor, implored Carbo to confront his addiction.
It brings you no happiness. It just brings you death. But you cannot, it's a bondage that takes over your life, and it's the only thing you think about. Father God, we just continue to pray for our congregation, Father God, to be loving and caring.
Carbo went into rehab, but says what cured his addiction was a newfound faith.
God pulled me right out of the grave. I was covered by the dirt. I was dying. I see what it did to my family, to my children, to my kids. It killed me. It took away everything. It took away everything from me.
Carbo's 3 daughters followed him into drugs. All 3 went to jail. The youngest, 33-year-old Tamara, served 5 years for conspiracy to manufacture meth.
I guess when you live in that life, you think it's normal, and then you just start following them footsteps until like it's almost too late sometimes.
Mom, you want a little bit?
At the age of 62, Carbo is now a family man. 5 years ago, while Tamara was in prison, Carbo and his third wife Tammy became the legal guardians of Tamara's 3 children, including Tyler, now 11.
He's a total different person now. He's loving, caring. He's just awesome. He's really changed.
Carbo says he's been clean and sober now for 16 years.
All right, here we go. You ready? Step, pivot, catch the ball.
He lives in Mobile, Alabama, where he teaches kids how to hit. And he travels to churches, schools, and prisons speaking about faith, baseball, and the dangers of substance abuse.
I'm not afraid to tell these kids, never let it touch your lips. Don't have a drink. Don't do the drugs.
Who were you then and who are you now?
I don't know that man. That man has died. I would hope no one would take the steps I took in my life.
Mark Schwartz reporting. Keith Hernandez is the TV analyst for the New York Mets, and through a spokesperson, he declined to comment on this story. For more on Bernie Carbo's drug-addled career, including some thoughts from his former skipper in Boston, Don Zimmer, log on for Willie Weinbaum's piece on ESPN.com. And next, the reception for Jessica Watson, age 16, as she finished what many said she should not even begin to attempt. Storylines update next as we continue.